October 4th, 1962. Marcus Little Hawk Williams sat at the bar inside Small's Paradise with a .22 revolver taped under his ribcage and watched Bumpy Johnson's reflection in the mirror behind the whiskey bottles. 3 feet of mahogany separating them. Close enough to hear Bumpy laugh at something Illinois Gordon said. Close enough to smell his cologne, something expensive, cedar and tobacco. The bartender, an old man named Clarence, kept polishing the same glass over and over, his hands moving but his eyes dead. Focused on Marcus like he could see straight through to the gun. Marcus had rehearsed this moment for 6 days. Wait until Bumpy stands to leave. Follow him to the bathroom hallway where it's darker, quieter, 2 shots to the back of the head. Walk out through the kitchen. $50,000 would be in a locker at Penn Station by midnight. But then Bumpy did something Marcus hadn't planned for. Something so simple it rewrote everything. He turned around, looked Marcus straight in the eyes and said, "You going to drink that or just hold it?" The question wasn't about the bourbon, and Marcus knew it. Vincent Gigante had tried everything else, so he went looking for someone stupid enough to take a suicide mission. 3 weeks before Marcus Williams walked into Small's Paradise with a gun, Anthony Costa sat in a social club in Little Italy counting the ways they'd failed to kill Bumpy Johnson. Ambushes in the street, Bumpy saw them coming. Poison in his food. Bumpy had tasters. Professional hitmen, they ended up in the East River, or worse, working for Bumpy. The Italian mob had spent 3 years and God knows how much money trying to remove one 57-year-old man from Harlem, and that man was still standing. Costa needed someone new. Someone Bumpy wouldn't see coming. Someone desperate enough to try and inexperienced enough not to know better. That's when Marcus Williams's name came up. Marcus was a low-level numbers runner in the Bronx, 26 years old, drowning in debt. His mother needed medication that cost more than he made in a month. His landlord was 3 weeks away from eviction. He was exactly the kind of desperate that Costa could exploit. Some people say Costa chose Marcus specifically because he knew the kid would fail. That the whole plan was just to probe Bumpy's defenses to see how he'd react. Others claim Costa genuinely believed an unknown face might succeed where professionals had failed. Either way, Costa made the approach on September 12th, and by September 15th, Marcus had agreed to kill a man he'd never met. The deal was simple on paper: $50,000, a new identity, and a fresh start anywhere in America. All Marcus had to do was walk into Small's Paradise on a Thursday night and put 2 bullets in the back of Bumpy Johnson's head. Costa gave him a .22 revolver from a pawn shop, cash for expenses, and 3 weeks to study his target. What Costa didn't tell Marcus was that the $50,000 didn't actually exist, that the new identity was a fantasy, and that every other person who'd taken this job had ended up dead or disappeared. Marcus spent those 3 weeks watching Bumpy. He learned the patterns: Small's Paradise on Thursdays, Lenox Lounge on Fridays, the Apollo on weekends. He learned that Bumpy always went to the bathroom alone around 10:15 p.m. He learned that the bathroom hallway at Small's Paradise was narrow, dimly lit, and usually empty. That 30-second window became Marcus's entire plan. Get Bumpy alone in that hallway, take the shot, walk out through the kitchen. Simple, clean. Foolproof. Except Marcus didn't know that Clarence the bartender had noticed him on his second surveillance visit. Didn't know that Clarence had mentioned the suspicious kid to Bumpy a week ago. Didn't know that Bumpy had already run a background check, found out about his mother's medical bills, traced the connection back to Anthony Costa, and understood exactly what was happening. Marcus thought he was hunting. He didn't realize he was the one being hunted. Clarence Davis had been working at Small's Paradise for 19 years, and he knew the difference between a customer and a threat. On September 28th, a Thursday night, Clarence noticed Marcus sitting at the bar. The kid ordered a bourbon, nursed it for 2 hours, and never took his eyes off Bumpy's table. Not unusual. Lots of people watched Bumpy. But something about the intensity bothered Clarence. The way Marcus's hand kept moving to his ribcage. The way he checked his watch every 10 minutes like he was timing something. The way he left the moment Bumpy stood up to use the bathroom, like he'd only been waiting for that specific moment. Clarence mentioned it to Samuel, one of the floor managers. Samuel mentioned it to Illinois Gordon. Illinois mentioned it to Bumpy. And Bumpy, being Bumpy, didn't panic or increase security. He just said, "Let him come back. I want to see what he does." Marcus came back 3 more times over the next week. Always Thursday nights. Always the same routine. Bourbon at the bar, eyes on Bumpy's table, quick exit when Bumpy went to the bathroom. By the 3rd visit, Clarence was certain this kid was planning something. "You want me to grab him?" Illinois had asked Bumpy after the 3rd surveillance run. "No," Bumpy replied. "I want to know who sent him first." That's when Bumpy made a phone call to a contact in the Bronx, a woman named Dorothy Chen who ran a boarding house and knew everyone's business. Dorothy knew Marcus, nice kid, quiet, taking care of his sick mother. She also knew Marcus had been asking around about making fast money. That piece of information led Bumpy to Anthony Costa, which led him to Vincent Gigante, which confirmed what Bumpy already suspected. The Chin was trying again. Some people argue this proves Bumpy had an intelligence network that rivaled the FBI's, that he had sources everywhere, informants in every borough, eyes that saw everything. Others say it was simpler than that. Bumpy had been in Harlem long enough to know people, and people talked to people they trusted. Dorothy Chen trusted Bumpy because he'd helped her nephew avoid jail time in 1959. Clarence trusted Bumpy because Bumpy had invested in Small's Paradise when the club was struggling. Information didn't flow to Bumpy because he demanded it. It flowed because he'd earned it. Either way, by October 3rd, Bumpy knew Marcus was coming. He knew when, he knew where, and he had a pretty good idea of how. The only question left was, what was he going to do about it? Marcus Williams arrived at Small's Paradise on October 4th at 8:30 p.m., and for the next 90 minutes he sat at that bar trying not to fall apart. The gun taped under his ribcage felt like it weighed 50 pounds. Every time he shifted position, the tape pulled at his skin. Every time someone walked past, he was certain they could see the outline of the weapon through his jacket. The bourbon in front of him had gone warm. He'd taken maybe 3 sips in an hour and a half. Bumpy was at his usual table with Illinois Gordon, Mouse Williams, and 2 others Marcus didn't recognize. They were passing papers back and forth, discussing something that involved a lot of numbers. Business. Normal Thursday night business. Bumpy looked relaxed, occasionally laughing, completely unaware that someone 3 feet away was planning to kill him. Except Bumpy wasn't unaware. At 9:45 p.m., he'd glanced at the bar, seen Marcus, and recognized him immediately from Clarence's descriptions. For just a second, Bumpy's eyes had locked with Marcus's reflection in the mirror. Then Bumpy had gone back to his conversation like nothing happened. That moment should have told Marcus everything. Should have made him realize he'd been made. But Marcus was too focused on his own fear to notice. His hands were sweating. His heart was racing. He kept rehearsing the plan in his head. Wait for Bumpy to stand, follow him to the bathroom, 2 shots, kitchen exit, Penn Station, $50,000, simple. He could do this. At 10:12 p.m., Bumpy stood up. Marcus's pulse spiked so hard he thought he might pass out. This was it. Bumpy said something to Illinois, buttoned his jacket, and started walking toward the bathroom. Marcus counted to 5, then slid off his bar stool. That's when Clarence put a hand on his wrist. "You forgot your change," Clarence said, his voice casual but his grip firm. "Keep it," Marcus replied, trying to pull away. "I insist." Clarence's eyes locked onto Marcus's. They weren't threatening. They were sad. like Clarence knew what Marcus was about to do and felt sorry for him. The delay cost Marcus 7 seconds. 7 seconds where Bumpy turned the corner into the bathroom hallway where the window of opportunity started closing. Marcus finally pulled free and walked fast toward the bathroom, hand already reaching for the gun under his jacket. Some people claim Clarence delayed Marcus on purpose, that Bumpy had instructed him to slow the kid down just enough to throw off his timing. Others say Clarence was just doing what bartenders do, returning change, making conversation, not realizing he was disrupting an assassination attempt. The question is, did Bumpy orchestrate every detail of that night, or did he just create conditions where the right things could happen? There's no definitive answer, but that 7-second delay changed everything. Marcus pushed through the bathroom door with his hand already gripping the .22 revolver under his jacket, and that's when the plan died. Bumpy was standing at the urinal back to the door, vulnerable, exactly where Marcus needed him. But Bumpy's voice came calm and casual. "You should know there's someone in the stall." Marcus froze. He looked at the closed stall door and saw dress shoes underneath, expensive ones, polished, the kind Illinois Gordon wore. Someone was in there, a witness. If Marcus pulled the gun now, he'd have to kill 2 people instead of 1. The window he'd planned for, 30 seconds alone with Bumpy, had evaporated. "Just finishing up," Bumpy continued, still not turning around. "Give me a minute." Marcus's mind raced. Should he wait for the person in the stall to leave? Should he abort completely? Every second he stood there was another second closer to getting caught. His hand was still under his jacket, fingers touching the gun, but he couldn't make himself pull it free. Bumpy moved to the sink and washed his hands, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Then he turned around and Marcus saw it. Bumpy's jacket was open just enough to reveal a shoulder holster. Bumpy was armed, had been armed this entire time. "You going to wash your hands?" Bumpy asked, his tone almost friendly. "Or did you come in here for something else?" The stall door opened. Illinois Gordon stepped out, 6'3", 240 pounds, a walking reminder that Marcus was completely outmatched. Illinois looked at Marcus, then at Bumpy, his expression neutral but his presence overwhelming. "This is the kid I was telling you about," Illinois said. "Been sitting at the bar for 90 minutes, hasn't touched his drink." Bumpy nodded slowly, like Illinois had just confirmed something he already knew. "The Chin send you?" Marcus didn't answer, couldn't answer. His mouth had gone dry. "Come on," Bumpy said, still calm, still casual. "Let's go sit down. We should talk." Here's where the story gets interesting. Did Bumpy plan for Illinois to be in that stall, or was Illinois just using the bathroom at the right time? Some people claim Bumpy had orchestrated the entire scene, that he'd told Illinois to wait in the stall, that he'd timed everything perfectly so Marcus would walk into an impossible situation. Others argue it was improvisation, that Bumpy had known Marcus was coming but adapted in the moment when he realized Illinois was in the bathroom. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Bumpy had set conditions for success, but the specific details emerged organically. Either way, Marcus's assassination attempt was over before it really began. Bumpy walked out of that bathroom like nothing had happened, and Marcus followed because the alternative was getting killed right there. They sat down at Bumpy's corner table. Bumpy ordered 3 bourbons, pushed one toward Marcus. "Drink, you look like you need it." Marcus's hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped the glass. The bourbon burned going down, but it helped. Barely. "How much did they offer you?" Bumpy asked. Marcus tried to deflect. "I don't know what—" "Don't insult me," Bumpy interrupted, his tone still calm but with an edge now. "The Chin's people approached you. They told you I'd be here tonight. They gave you a gun and a number. How much?" The lie collapsed before Marcus could even construct it. 50,000. Bumpy whistled low. That's a lot of money. More than they offered the last guy. He leaned back in his chair. You know what happened to the last guy? Marcus shook his head. Nothing, Bumpy said. He's working in Philadelphia now. Runs a small numbers operation. Doing fine. I helped set him up, actually. He took a sip of his bourbon. You want to know why? Why? Because he came to me first, before he took the job. Told me what the Chin was offering, asked me what he should do. So I gave him a choice. Take some money and disappear, or stay and work for me. He chose Philadelphia, smart kid. Marcus was trying to process this. You let him live? Why wouldn't I? He didn't actually try to kill me. Bumpy's eyes hardened slightly. You, on the other hand, you walked into my place with a gun taped to your ribs. You followed me into that bathroom. You were ready to do it. This is the moment that defines the entire story, and it's the moment nobody can quite explain. Why would Bumpy Johnson, a man who'd built his reputation on being untouchable, offer mercy to someone who'd just tried to kill him? Some people claim it was strategic, that Bumpy understood turning enemies into allies was more valuable than eliminating them. Others say it was practical, that killing Marcus would have brought heat from the police and attention from the Chin. Still others argue it was something simpler. Bumpy saw a desperate kid making a bad choice and remembered when he'd been that kid himself. Let me tell you something about killing people, Marcus, Bumpy said, leaning forward. It's not like the movies, it changes you. You pull that trigger, you become someone different, someone who has to live with that decision every day for the rest of their life. You ready for that? Marcus didn't answer because he didn't know. 20 minutes ago, he'd thought he was ready. Now, sitting across from the man he'd come to kill, he wasn't sure he'd ever been ready. I didn't think so. Bumpy's voice softened. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take that gun out, slowly, very slowly, and you're going to put it on the table. Then you're going to tell me everything. Who approached you, when, where, what they told you, every detail. And if I believe you're being honest, I'll let you walk out of here. And if I don't? Marcus asked. Illinois shifted in his seat. The implied threat was clear. Let's not find out, Bumpy said. Marcus told Bumpy everything, and what he learned in return made him realize how close he'd come to dying for nothing. He explained how Anthony Costa had approached him 3 weeks ago, how they'd met in a diner in the Bronx, how Costa had shown him photographs of Bumpy, told him about the Thursday routine at Small's Paradise, explained how the bathroom hallway would give him a clean shot, how they'd promised $50,000 in a locker at Penn Station the moment Bumpy's death was confirmed. Bumpy listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, Bumpy was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Marcus's stomach drop. They lied to you. What? They lied. There's no $50,000 at Penn Station. You think the Chin's going to leave that kind of money in a locker for some kid he doesn't trust? Bumpy shook his head. You kill me. You go to that locker. It's either empty or full of cops. Either way, you're not getting paid. Marcus felt the room tilt. How do you know? Because this isn't the first time they've tried this. 4th time in 3 years, actually. Same pattern every time. Find some desperate kid, offer them money they can't refuse, promise them a new life. The kid either chickens out, gets caught, or gets killed trying. Either way, the Chin doesn't pay. Why would he? You're not a professional. You're disposable. The logic was brutal and obvious once Marcus heard it. Costa didn't know him anything. Why would they actually pay? The whole setup was designed to be risk-free for the Chin. If Marcus succeeded, great. Bumpy's dead. If Marcus failed, they lost a $20 gun and a kid they never cared about. So what now? Marcus asked quietly. Bumpy poured him another bourbon. Now I make you the same offer I made the last guy. You can leave New York. I'll give you $5,000, real money, not promises, and a contact in Baltimore. You start over, or you can stay in Harlem and work for me. Not as muscle, I've got enough of that. But you're smart enough to see opportunities and smart enough to know when you're in over your head. That's valuable. Here's where interpretations diverge wildly. Was Bumpy genuinely offering Marcus a second chance, or was he recruiting someone he could control through gratitude and debt? Some historians argue Bumpy was building loyalty the way he always did, by helping people when they were desperate, then collecting on that help later. Others claim Bumpy genuinely believed in rehabilitation, that he'd been given second chances himself and wanted to extend the same. The evidence supports both interpretations, which might be the point. Maybe Bumpy's motivations were complex enough to be both manipulative and generous at the same time. "Why would you trust me?" Marcus asked. "I don't trust you. Not yet. But I believe in second chances." Bumpy's expression softened slightly. "Look, I know why you took this job. I know what it's like to need money so bad you'll do things you never thought you'd do. The difference is I'm offering you a way out that doesn't involve killing someone or ending up dead yourself." Illinois had been silent this whole time, but now he spoke. "Boss, you sure about this?" "Yeah," Bumpy said, "I'm sure." Marcus Williams had walked into Small's paradise that night with one plan, and now he was being offered something he hadn't even known to want, a future. The smart play was probably to take the $5,000 and run, get out of New York before the Chin's people realized what happened. Start over in Baltimore where nobody knew his name or his failure. But something about Bumpy's offer felt different than Costa's offer. Costa had made everything sound easy, risk-free, guaranteed, no consequences. Bumpy was being brutally honest. "This is work, it's dangerous, you screw up once and you're done, but if you're smart and you keep your head down, maybe you build something." Marcus realized he trusted Bumpy's version more than Costa's. Not because Bumpy was a good person. Marcus wasn't that naive, but because Bumpy's offer sounded real. $50,000 in a locker at Penn Station had sounded like a fantasy. Running numbers in the Bronx sounded like work, and work was something Marcus understood. "I'll stay," Marcus said. Bumpy nodded. "Good. Illinois will set you up. You start Monday." He stood, buttoned his jacket. "One more thing. The Chin's people are going to come looking for you. They're going to want to know what happened, why I'm not dead. You're going to tell them the truth. You chickened out. You sat at that bar for 90 minutes and couldn't do it. Make yourself look weak. Make them think you're not worth killing. And if they don't believe me, they will. Because it's what they expect." Bumpy started walking toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus? If I ever find out you're working for them, or talking to them, or even thinking about them, I won't have this conversation again. We clear?" "Yes, sir." "Good, now get out of here. Illinois will find you tomorrow." Marcus watched Bumpy walk out of Small's paradise surrounded by his people, and for the first time that night he felt like he could breathe. He reached under his jacket and felt the absence where the gun had been. Bumpy had taken it, kept it. Marcus wondered if that was insurance or a reminder or both. What Marcus didn't know, what he wouldn't learn for years, was that Bumpy had already paid his mother's medical bills that afternoon. $5,000 to a hospital in the Bronx, anonymous donation, exact amount needed to clear her debt. Some people claim this proves Bumpy had planned to recruit Marcus all along, that the mercy was calculated from the start. Others say Bumpy made the decision in that bathroom, saw an opportunity and moved fast. Either interpretation makes sense, neither can be proven. Marcus Williams worked for Bumpy Johnson for 6 years, and in that time he never once regretted the choice he made at Small's paradise. He ran numbers in the Bronx, kept his head down, and learned how Bumpy's operation actually worked. It wasn't just violence and intimidation. Though there was some of that, it was relationships. It was knowing which politicians needed money and which needed problems solved. It was understanding that power came from being useful to enough people that removing you created more problems than keeping you around. Marcus was good at it. Smart enough to see opportunities, disciplined enough not to take stupid risks. By 1965, he was running his own crew, handling collections for 3 neighborhoods. Bumpy trusted him with real responsibility, which surprised everyone except maybe Bumpy himself. In 1968, Bumpy helped Marcus set up his own operation in Baltimore, not as exile, but as expansion. Bumpy gave him seed money, contacts, and advice. "Build something legitimate," Bumpy told him. "Numbers are fine for now, but the future's in real estate and legitimate business. Learn from my mistakes." Marcus took the advice. By 1975, he owned 4 apartment buildings in Baltimore, a dry cleaning business, and a restaurant. He'd left the numbers game behind completely. Last anyone heard, he was doing well. Comfortable, legitimate, clean record. The .22 revolver Marcus had brought to Small's Paradise that night? Bumpy kept it in a desk drawer for years. Some say it was a reminder of the night he'd turned an enemy into an asset. Others say it was insurance, a piece of evidence he could produce if Marcus ever betrayed him. Mouse Williams, who cleaned out Bumpy's office after he died in 1968, found the gun and threw it in the East River. He figured Bumpy wouldn't need reminders anymore. Vincent Gigante tried to kill Bumpy Johnson 7 more times between 1962 and 1968, and every single attempt failed for the same reason Marcus Williams failed. Bumpy saw them coming. The pattern was always the same. The chin would find someone desperate, a low-level runner, a kid with debts, someone who needed money badly enough to take a suicide mission. They'd offer a big payday, provide a gun, point them at Bumpy. And every time, one of 3 things happened. The assassin chickened out, the assassin got caught, or the assassin ended up working for Bumpy. The chin never understood why. He kept thinking in terms of tactics, better weapons, better timing, better surveillance. What he didn't understand was that Bumpy wasn't winning through superior tactics. He was winning because he had something the chin didn't: information. People told Bumpy things. Bartenders, cab drivers, shop owners, people the Italian mob never thought to pay attention to. They told Bumpy because he'd helped them, because they respected him, because they understood that their safety was tied to his survival. Some historians argue this proves Bumpy had built an intelligence network that rivaled any government agency, that his information gathering was systematic, professional, and comprehensive. Others claim it was simpler. Bumpy had been in Harlem long enough to earn trust, and trust meant information flowed naturally. The truth is probably both. Bumpy was intentional about building relationships, but those relationships created organic information flow that he didn't have to force. Either way, the chin never cracked the code. He kept sending assassins, they kept failing. And by 1967, even the chin had to admit that killing Bumpy Johnson wasn't worth the cost anymore. He'd lost too many soldiers, too much money, too much respect. When Bumpy died in 1968, it was from a heart attack, not a bullet. The chin probably felt cheated. Here's what I keep coming back to. What if Marcus had been 7 seconds faster in that hallway? What if Clarence hadn't delayed him at the bar? What if Illinois hadn't been in the bathroom? What if Marcus had caught Bumpy alone, pulled the trigger, and succeeded? Everything would be different. The chin would have taken over Harlem. The power structure of New York's underworld would have shifted. The neighborhood that Bumpy had protected for decades would have fractured. But that's not what happened. And the reason it didn't happen wasn't because Bumpy was bulletproof or superhuman. It was because he'd built systems that protected him. He had Clarence watching the bar. He had people like Dorothy Chen feeding him information. He had enough goodwill in the community that when someone was planning to kill him, someone else told him about it. Was that genius? Was that luck? Was it just the natural result of spending 30 years building relationships? Probably all three. The best operators don't choose between planning and improvisation. They create conditions where good luck becomes more likely and bad luck becomes less damaging. Marcus Williams walked into Small's paradise that night with a gun and a plan. He walked out with a job and a future. And Bumpy Johnson walked out with another soldier in his army, another person who owed him, another reason why killing him was harder than anyone thought. Some people call that manipulation. Some call it mercy, some call it genius. Bumpy probably called it Thursday. The truth about October 4th, 1962 is that an assassin sat 3 feet from Bumpy Johnson with a loaded gun, and something went wrong. Or depending on how you look at it, something went exactly right. Next week, we're covering the night Bumpy Johnson negotiated a truce between 5 different Harlem gangs in a single meeting, and why that truce lasted longer than anyone expected. You're going to want to hear that one. Hit that like button if this story made you think differently about power and second chances. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're dropping these deep dives every week. And drop a comment. If you were Marcus, would you have taken the job in the Bronx or the 5,000 and run? Let